Okay, Zach, here is your script. Starts right there. No, it starts, oh, wait a minute. Yeah.
Zach Alcoholic. We're gonna do the serenity prayer real quick. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. All right. Now our main speaker will share her experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming Nancy from Seal Beach.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nancy, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you, Sil, for inviting me, and Julie and Sil for taking me out to dinner, and my sponsee/friend Paula for showing up all the way from Arizona. Paula and I were together in Minnesota. We both lived there for quite some time, and she's visiting her family in Torrance, so here she is tonight. I thank you so much for your talk. That was great. All right, let's get on with it. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 26 years old. That's a long time ago. And I've been sober ever since, a day at a time, for 54 years. And I'll tell you the secret to everybody. How you can go 54, well, if you live that long. You go to a lot of meetings and you don't drink. That's how you stay sober. There's no, I never learned any magic. And I think if I told you my life right now, you may not even be able to figure out, well, when did you get sober? Because I really continued to be pretty crazy after I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, maybe even more so, not drinking. But, and my life, since I got here, it's really just had many, many, many ups and downs. And there was one time in my sobriety, I was 4 years sober, I bought a big bottle of vodka. And I went to the store and I bought it, and I was driving home. I was going to drink it. Now, and I got home, and it was because, I'd gone through my first divorce, and I found relationships very difficult, and like dating and all that kind of stuff. I didn't really know how to do it very well. And I think I had a broken heart, or my feelings were hurt. And so my solution, even at 4 years, was to go buy a bottle of vodka. And I brought it home, and I actually opened it, and I actually had it up to my lips. And then I thought of this woman in the group that I went to at the time, and she shared so honestly from the podium about things like that. So I'm grateful. I can say anything from the podium. I have no secrets, and I have nothing to hide, but anymore, because I'm no different. We're all, we have the same things going on. But she had shared something from the podium. And so before I drank it, I thought of her, and I was actually supposed to be going to a meeting that night, and I knew she would be there. So I drove up to the meeting, and she was just walking down the sidewalk to go in, and I called her over to my car. And she ended up getting in my car with me and going back to my house, and we poured it away, and then I could talk to her about what was going on. I didn't know how to talk to people. I didn't even know what was wrong with me half the time. I didn't know anything about my feelings or really what was going on, at all. So I'll back up a little bit and tell you, growing up, I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. I have 5 brothers, a mother, a father, a sister, and everybody's alcoholic except for my mother, who was, she went to one Al-Anon meeting, and she found out that you have to work on yourself, and she never went back to Al-Anon. She just she yelled and screamed, my poor mother, God bless her, may she rest in peace. She yelled and screamed all the time. She had 7 wild kids, and Catholic school, of course, and Catholic church, and by the way, I'm going to, in my sobriety, I had the opportunity to 12-step a Catholic sister. And then I sponsored her. And it's like 7 meetings a week, or else, sister, get the ruler. And I had 2 of them. Anyway, no, that was there. They're still around. Both of them are still around and sober. But so growing up in this family, I mean, my mom was just nuts. And, now, I mean, I can see why. And trying to take care of us. And, I have 2 older brothers than myself, 3 younger brothers, and then my sister. And last weekend, or the weekend before it was, I flew up to Northern California to help my sister celebrate 25 years. And I got to 12-step her. She didn't ask me to. Her husband asked me to 12-step her. I kind of get off track, so it doesn't really matter. But I like to talk about that because I was living in Minnesota, and it was real early in the morning, and I was getting ready to go to work. And her husband got a hold of me on email, I think, and he said, your sister's drinking round the clock, and if she doesn't quit, she has to leave. And I was sober, a while, 20-some years, and I know that this works if we have the gift of desperation. So I wasn't about to fly out to California and hold my sister's hand. So I tried calling her in the morning, and she wouldn't answer the phone. And then I sat down right away, and I wrote a letter to her as a woman alcoholic. I mean, men, women, it doesn't really matter, but I described the hopelessness that she felt and the despair and, all those feelings that we have. And I FedExed it to her. And I worked for an airline, so I put in a coupon there that I said, you can get an airplane ticket with this and you can come to me in Minnesota. And I FedExed it, and I knew it would get there at 12 o'clock. And at 12 o'clock, my phone rang, and she was crying. And I was really happy that she was crying because, it was just one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic. And so I made arrangements with her. I said, well, I'll go to L.A., but you've got to come from where you are and meet me in L.A. She hated to travel. She hated to leave her horse more than her husband. She hated to leave her horse. But and she took a train and a bus, and then she, called me a couple times. Can I drink? I said, yes, you can drink, but don't get so drunk that you miss your train or your bus. Just get here. And so I was there when she got off the bus, and she was drunk. And we just stayed together for 3 days, and I took her to a meeting. It was a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I took her to a meeting every night, the Monday night meeting. I didn't tell her anything that she had to do. You have to stand and say this or that. But at the meeting, are there any newcomers? And she stood up, and she said her name and that she was an alcoholic, and that just made me so happy because I know, what we have here. And we don't know when we're new, but I knew then what we have here. So I said, now you go back home and you call central office and you ask them where there's a meeting and you go, and if you don't like it, find another meeting. And she stayed sober ever since. So anyway, that's that story. So back to where I was. I have no idea where I was, but growing up with that family, my sister was the youngest. And, I just started drinking. We had a built-in beer keg. My dad had we had an extra refrigerator with the built-in beer keg. When I was a teenager, I saved up these big jars, mayonnaise jars and things like that. And I filled them with beer when nobody was around, and I put them in my closet. I mean, I was 13 or 14 years old, and so, it didn't matter that it was flat. I just got all the beer I could get. And then when I would hear that noise that an empty beer keg makes, my dad would be yelling, where did all the beer go? Then I would just quietly go in my room and drink flat beer. Now, I never really... I can't recall going, oh, this is it. I just always drank. And I didn't have a reason. I just always, because I'm an alcoholic, I guess, but I always just drank. So I paid hitchhikers to buy alcohol for me. I had somebody made me a false ID, which we could get away with back then. I had babysitting jobs, and I took their alcohol. I also went into people's bathrooms and into their medicine cabinets and took stuff. And so I just did that. And when I didn't have a boyfriend, I was in Catholic school, and I wasn't like the cute little girl, the little cheerleader. My brothers were very rough with me, and we had big fights. Like, I had to fight like a boy. And like when my car I told one of my brothers, the transmission's acting up in my car. He said, well, take it out and give it to me, and I'll go get it fixed. They would watch me change tires. They wouldn't help me. So I grew up, kind of tough, I guess. And so I wasn't like the little girly girls at school. In fact, the boys at school would ask me, would you go get Paula's number and get it for me? And I would write my number down on a piece of paper and give it to them. And so, I don't know. I just really kind of wandered around. I really did want to have a boyfriend. I didn't know how to go about that. I gave myself a hickey one time with the vacuum hose, so they would think that I had a boyfriend. Now, what happened, though, at 15 years old, I still didn't have a boyfriend, but somehow I was pregnant. So that was curious. And that wasn't very good for a little Catholic schoolgirl. Well, there was a stable across the street from where I lived, and I loved the horses, and I went up there all the time. And there were these cowboy guys up there and the horseshoer, and I was always flirting with them and acting up, trying to get attention. All I ever wanted was attention. And so I'd more attention, And so the guy, he was a lot older, and he lived in a little shack up there at the stable. He was the horseshoer. And he dared me to sneak out of my house in the middle of the night. Well, I can't turn down a dare. Practically to this day, I can't. So I did. I climbed out my window, and I also like that feeling of excitement and adrenaline. This is really scary. And I went up there. Okay, here I am. Well, I guess we had sex because I ended up being pregnant. And I didn't really know. I didn't have anybody to talk to. My mother and I weren't on, we didn't talk like that to each other. I didn't have any girlfriends. And I just hoped that this thing was going to disappear and go away. Well, my parents, figured it out, something. They caught on. I was, wearing a little green plaid uniform skirt to go to Catholic school, and I was outgrowing it because they didn't make maternity Catholic skirts, back then. So they found out, and when I knew they found out, I wasn't at home, so I didn't come back home. I ran away. I was so scared. My mother scared me, and God bless her. And now, that she's gone, I can appreciate her so much more. And for a long time, I was mad at her, and I was mad at my father because they didn't comfort me, and they just, what they did was they sent me away. Because back then, this was in 1960, you've got to leave. And nobody can know about this. You're going to disappear, have the baby, give it up, come back, and act like nothing happened. And so, but when I knew they found out, I ran away from home. I was really afraid. And then, I called the house, and one of my brothers said, where are they? And he said, they're at the police station looking for you. And that just kind of scared me, and I went home, and then they sent me away. Had the baby, came back, went to a different school, Van Nuys High School, found everybody who drank like I did, and, had parties and things, got in trouble, still wanted attention all the time. So I did anything anybody dared me to do at school. Therefore, I wasn't allowed to graduate with the class, do all the stuff that they did. Well, who wants to anyway? That's what I would say. Who cares? That's what I always said. Who cares? And so the night that, they had all that stuff going on at school, my friend Carol and my friend Paul sat behind the gas station, and we had liquor, and we just drank and made fun of the kids that were doing the thing. By the way, my friend Carol lives where my sister lives. And she's sober also, duh. And so anyway, then I really, like, from that time on, nobody was telling me what I should do. My mother is like, you get married, you have children. And nobody encouraged me to do anything else. I really wandered through life. I was still drinking, and I got a job in a dental office, and there were a lot of pain pills there, and I liked those. I always took anything that anybody gave me. By the way, when I was that age, we got a hold of marijuana. And do you know what? If you got caught with marijuana back then, you went to prison. For back then, isn't that crazy? Yeah. So, if I got caught then and went to prison, I might still be there. I would get pardoned for sure. But no. I don't know. But no, that's the truth, though, because we were smoking and the police pulled up next to us and we were terrified. But anyway, life went on. From that time on until I got here, I really just wandered through life and did kind of whatever came in front of me. Worked in the dental office. I was the bookkeeper. I was the dental assistant. I ordered the supplies. I thought he should pay me more money because I did so much work. I came in early in the morning. I stayed late. Could I ask for a raise? No, because I don't like to hear the word no. It scares me. And, and so I wouldn't ask him for a raise, but I gave myself a raise because I was the bookkeeper. And I felt like I deserved it. So that was that. I think when I was working there, somehow, I don't know where Joe came along. Joe was my first husband. And he's a very nice man. And he's still around. He's married to Patty. She was a nun. So after me, he had to find somebody a little more mellow. She had left the she wasn't still a nun. She left the convent, and she was a Catholic. She had been a nun. So, but Joe asked me to marry him. I don't even remember where we met, but I didn't want to get married, but I said yes. Do you know why? I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I hate my feelings being hurt, and so I don't like rejection. I don't like people telling me no. And so I didn't do him any favors, and I didn't do husband number 2 any favors either by marrying somebody I didn't really want to marry. But Joe and I got married. Now I'm in the house and drinking every opportunity I could get. And eventually we had 3 little boys, twin boys and another one. The twins were 3 years old, and the other one was 1 year old when I got sober. I put their life in danger. I locked the 2 older ones in their bedroom because they wanted to go outside and play, and I always had alcohol on my breath. And, I was wondering the other day why I was always so scared of getting caught. It's hard probably for people in the room tonight to understand that because you hear all about this now, but I didn't hear all about this back then. I didn't hear anything about AA. There were no treatment centers that I knew of. And I think that I imagined that if I got caught drinking like I was drinking, that I would be sent away to some kind of mental hospital and I would be locked in there and I wouldn't be able to get any alcohol. And so I was just really scared all the time of getting caught. But I drank all the time, and I was, I didn't let the boys go outside because of having alcohol on my breath. I stopped doing things that I wanted to do sometimes because of the alcohol. And it was my whole life. It dictated what I was doing, I shoplifted. I loved to go shoplifting. I'd put the boys in the car. It was that excitement. I'm gonna get away with this. I was real good at it. So, it was kind of like day in and day out. I did this stuff. And Joe would get mad at me. I knew he marked the bottles. I made new marks on them. One time I filled the vodka all with water because I couldn't get out and get more. And we had unexpected company come over that night. And he made them water and tonic. And they're like, And I was just sitting there, oh no, I go, I'm doomed. And oh, this is good. And I don't know, what. But so day in and day out, same thing. He used to try to catch me. He marked the bottles. I made new marks he couldn't ever figure out. And water was in the bottles. And he drank this really expensive stuff, Crown Royal. He loved it. But I drank it all because that's all there was. I tried not to. But then I just got some cheap brown stuff. It was alcohol. And he still would, this is so good, but it really wasn't what he thought it was. But anyway, day in and day out, kind of same old thing. And so, I would disappear sometimes. And I was hospitalized for pancreatitis. And, back then, no doctor said to me, do you drink? I was in the hospital while I was in there, I thought to myself, oh, I probably don't really have a drinking problem because I've been in the hospital now 2 days and I'm not drinking. However, I was hooked up to, intravenous pain medication. But anyway, the day came when Joe, I disappeared on a Sunday night for a while and then I called him and asked him to come pick me up, and he got someone to watch the kids, and he came and he got me, and he just had it, and he said, if you don't quit drinking, you have to leave without the kids. And I said, okay, I was going to leave without the kids. Why? Because I couldn't quit drinking. I tried every single day, I think, that I can remember. I'm not going to take a drink. I'm not going to take a drink. Okay, I'm just going to have one drink. How many times I said that, I couldn't count. But anyway, I was ready to go that night. We had one car. I didn't want to take the car. And God intervened. And the God, I said I went to Catholic school, and I had God in my life, but I have a different God here now, and I think we can't really describe. To me, God is just pure love. God is in this room. God is in everyone's eyes in this room. But God intervened that night, and I was trying to call somebody to have them come get me because I was going to leave. And Joe came in and he said, I don't care where you go, but you can't run away from it. He didn't plan those words. They just came out of his mouth. I hung up, and I didn't plan on doing this, but his brother is a Catholic priest, and he's still alive, and he's a Monsignor, and I don't know why I dialed his number. I lived in California. He lived in Pennsylvania. Time difference. What's a priest doing home? People need them. Usually they're out and about, no cell phones. I called his number. He answered the phone, and I said, I can't quit drinking. I don't think I ever said that out loud to anybody. And he said to me, I can't help you. The Catholic Church can't help you, but Alcoholics Anonymous can help you. And I know, right? And so it was a Sunday night. It was late. Luckily, there was a meeting that started at 8:30 and ended at 10. Joe found it. He got the neighbor to come over, watch the kids. I was very drunk, and I was heavy, and I had on I put on this orange polyester pantsuit, and it was real tight on my neck. My face was red. My hair was bad, and he got me in the car, and he started up to this meeting. And, we're driving, and I was saying, why do I have to go? My brothers drink more than I do, and I don't want to go. Take me home. And then I said, if you don't take me home, I'm going to jump out of the car. And he started driving faster, and he got me to the meeting. And we walked in, and it was just about over. A man was talking up here, and then we came in and sat down, and there happened to be a seat on the aisle, and I sat down there. And I can recollect kind of in my looking back now, like everybody in that room was like, we have a newcomer. And so they all came around me after the meeting, and somebody had a piece of cake, coffee, literature, and I started throwing up. I threw up all the time, and I threw up on their shoes. They didn't seem to care. And I ran outside, and then they all came outside. They were all standing around me, and they were so happy that I was there. So that was that night. Two ladies said, stay and talk with us. I didn't want to. And I went home Monday. I was sitting on my couch. not knowing what happened or what was going to happen. And there was a knock on my door, and it was the two ladies from the night before. Joe gave them our address. You know, I mean, all that, it just comes together, you know. I mean, to me, it's like a miracle for me. We used to do 12-step calls. We just don't get them anymore. But those ladies took it upon themselves to go out of their way, come to my house. They didn't know if I'd answer the door. I used to go on 12-step calls where people had called central office. They wanted somebody to come until we actually got there, and then they wouldn't answer the door. And they'd hide, and they didn't want to talk to us. Well, I opened the door, and there were these two ladies. They were in their 50s. They were kind of old. And they sat in my living room, and all they did was tell me their stories, each one of them. Just briefly, they told me their stories. And one of them gave me her little 24-hour book, which I still have now, and I read it every morning. It's absolutely falling apart. I have a rubber band around it, but I can remember their faces. And they went out of their way, and they came and they talked to me. And, you know, you were saying about, you know, talking to people before. I remember then when I started going to meetings, how a lady one night, when I was real new, just said, "Hi, sit down here and tell me a little bit about yourself." That meant so much to me. But anyway, so those ladies got me started. And they got me started here, and I'm here. I drank once, I don't know why, after 4 months. Not sure why. I drank a half gallon of Red Mountain wine, drove on the Ventura Freeway, threw it out the window. I watched it crash behind me, and I think I wanted to go to jail because I hadn't been to jail, and I wanted to go. And I heard your stories, and I thought, well, I need to spice up my story a little bit. But so I drove home, and the next thing I know, I woke up and I was face down. We had a blue shag carpet in our den, and I was face down one more time in my own throw up. And so my husband was sitting there. He'd been to Al-Anon. He just sat there to make sure I didn't die. And then that night I went right back to AA. And I've been going ever since. And life goes on, you know. Now, you know, I can't learn a lesson just because somebody might, you know, say, you know, write it down or something. This is something you're going to learn or experience. I had to experience everything on my own. I was so immature, emotionally immature, and I still am. I really, you know, it doesn't ever go away. That's why I'm here. I love Alcoholics Anonymous, though. I absolutely love it. It's exciting and it's fun, and it's great to be here tonight and to see all the, you know, the young people, because I have a lot of nieces and nephews who have been here and not been here. I had one nephew who just like nobody thought that he was going to live. And he went through more than anybody I've ever known. And when I lived in Minnesota, I had him come live with me. And were you there? And you met Ryan. And God, I just loved him because I was with him when he was a baby. And, you know, he went back out and he couldn't live with me anymore. And, but he has like 2 years now. And I know, and he, God, I mean, he was on the news for, you know, lots of stuff. And, so, but I, you know, so I, you know, got sober. Joe and I got divorced after I was about 4 years, I guess. And now I'm going to, you know, get a job. What have I done? I was a dental assistant. Go get a job. Now I have 3 kids, go to meetings. And I had really strong, tough, mean sponsors. And no, I didn't have that many sponsors, but the one I had, and then maybe another one, I'd say, well, you know, I've got these kids, and I mean, I have to get up early in the morning and blah, blah, blah. I'll see you at the meeting. You figure it out. And they would hang up on me. And you know what? I would figure it out, because I think later I realized I still want everyone's approval. I wanted them to like me. That's not a bad thing. It worked in my favor, actually. And I never went without going to meetings. My kids grew up in AA. You know, during my those years, I know one time I was locked in my bedroom, sober, a number of years, but I think I had a broken relationship. And one of my sons, Mom, are you going to come out? No. He goes, the longer you stay in there and think about it, the worse it's going to be. You better come out. I mean, he was like 8 years old. And, they're good. They're good men today, all three of them. They have families, and they've done really well. I mean, normal. They've just had normal lives. I had 2 more marriages. The second one, I told you I didn't really want to get married, and I said I didn't do him any favors. It was really tough, and the boys lived with us, and their dad, Joe, had married Patty, and he used to say, we'd love to have the boys live with us, and I would think to myself, oh no, the kids stay with their mother. And by this time, though, I was really learning to pray, and I was being diligent about prayers and I did a lot of writing, and I had done 2 4th and 5th steps by that time. And, I heard this thing, because I was open to God, to what should I do? And I heard, if you love them so much, why don't you let them go live with their dad and his wife? It's a much more stable home. And so they did do that, and then Tom and I tried to, keep this marriage going. I ended up, I thought I was going to have like this huge breakdown. I was 12 or 13 years sober. I sponsored a bunch of women, and I thought I was going to have this breakdown, and the kids had gone to live with Joe and Patty, and I bought a one-way ticket to Hawaii because a couple of my brothers had gone to live there, and I really was emotionally distraught trying to make this marriage work, and so I didn't want to talk to anybody, and I wrote everybody notes, all my sponsees. I'm leaving. I'm never coming back. I'm having a breakdown, and I flew to Hawaii. But what did I do when I got there? I went to AA right away. There's no strangers. I can go anywhere. And they welcomed me. They took me on this retreat they were going on that weekend. I lived with one of my brothers and his family. That was where I spent a lot of time with Ryan, my nephew. And I went to AA. And I stayed for 8 months. I did a lot of writing while I was there because I had discovered that writing was a wonderful tool for me. And I was blaming Tom, the man I was married to, for everything because I had reasons to blame him. However, I'm not going to get better unless I figure out my part in something. And so I did this writing. I got to that point after 8 months. I went back. I asked Tom to go to lunch. I made amends for the way I left. And, we were divorced. He divorced me right away, but I made amends, and I did not ask for anything in return. I didn't say, it felt so good not to say, but you know what you did. It didn't even really enter my mind because it just felt so good to be growing up a little bit. So, let's see. So I went back and I went to AA, did all the normal stuff that I do. I've always gone. I've always just had a home group, people around me that, we've got to look out for each other. And so after I came back from Hawaii, there was a man named Ed. Paula just loved my husband, and she baked him apple pies all the time in Minnesota. But I met Ed in California, and we just struck up a conversation, and then he asked me to go out on a date, and it was a really nice date. And then right away he said, I don't ever want to get married again. He hadn't been married in 15 years. He'd only been married once. I said, that's fine. And then he went to the International Convention and must have been like 85, I think. And Lois Wilson walked across the stage, and he had this thought, marry Nancy. And he said, go away, bad thought, go away, bad thought. And so he came home, and he just was looking at me, and he said, do you want to get married? And I said, okay. And we got married 9 days later, At that time, Clancy sponsored both of us, and he ran the Midnight Mission on Skid Row. And we just said, can we just come down there and get married in your office? And we did do that. That was it. We just got married. And then not long after that, Ed was offered a job in Minnesota. And so we moved to Minnesota. I lived there for 30 some years. Ed passed away in 2012. And we had the best life together. It was, all the stuff, that I went through as I'm growing up, as I'm, learning how to deal with life. Say it paid off, or, we just had the best time together. He was fun, he was funny, he was spiritual, way more spiritual than I was. He taught me a lot. And we just had this great life together, and in Minnesota. And we, after a little bit, we each started sponsoring people, and we all got together and started the meeting called Central Pacific, and it's 35 years old now. And, we have like lifelong friends like Paula, and I still sponsor the people in Minnesota. When Ed died, I got all his guys because we were one big happy family. And so, God makes sure that I'm really tethered to AA. And so about a year after Ed died, I went to get the mail one day, and there was a letter in the mail, and I didn't recognize it was a man's name, and it was handwritten. And I'm reading this letter, and it was thanking me for what I did, and I would be proud. It just was saying stuff I didn't get, like, what is this? And I kept reading. And then I finally understood it was from the baby that I gave up for adoption. And now it's like 53 years later. And he gave me his address. He lived in California. He gave me his email and said, so what we did was I emailed him that night and said, it's nice to meet you. And we started emailing, for 6 months. I was not ready to go meet in person. And but we emailed and got to know each other really well. And then he said that he and his wife were going to vacation in Park City, and they had a condo with an extra bedroom, and I could come stay with them for 2 weeks or however long I wanted. And so I said, okay, it's time now. And I picked 3 nights. I flew into Salt Lake, and I remember sitting on the plane and just thinking, God, I know you have your arms around me. We had gotten to know each other pretty well, and we exchanged pictures, but I just felt like God was just holding me. And then I got to the escalator. He was at the bottom with this big bouquet of flowers, and I had a little sterling silver baby rattle made that said, "Love from your first mom." And his mom had passed away when he was in his 20s, so he needed a mom. And I put his birth date on there. I stayed with them for 3 days. It was comfortable from the minute we met, and we still have a beautiful relationship. They now live in Utah, and I live, where do I live here? I live in Seal Beach, but I know, am I in Minnesota or what? But I used to think about him, and I would say, every time I'd say, Nancy, leave him alone. He has a mother. Just leave him alone. Like, you don't need to go looking for him. And so God had other plans for me. And I'm so grateful for that. His wife is, my daughter-in-law is really very kind and loving to me. And I mentioned before, my 3 boys are all good. They're all married. They all have kids. They're good men. And I don't know, this is it. Here I am tonight. Here I'll go home tomorrow. I don't even, I have something going on tomorrow. I don't know. I have, people call me all day long, and email and text message. And, God has given me so many wonderful gifts in all these people that are in my life. And I'm so grateful. And thanks again for inviting me to speak here tonight.